Welcome to the Monterey Museum of Art. My name is Corey Madden and I'm the Executive Director. I want to welcome you to Ansel Adams Portraits by and of, curated by Jeanne Falk Adams, from the private collection of Michael and Jeanne Falk Adams. This rare opportunity to see 110 works from the private collection of the Adams family is truly a treasure. We're offering it at our La Mirada campus on Sundays from 11 to 5. It's a wonderful opportunity to see the space, which has not been open for an exhibition for several years. We sat down to talk with Jeanne about her curation for the show, and I'm thrilled to present it to you now.
I'm Jeanne Adams, the curator of the Ansel Adams Portraits by and of that is opening now at the Monterey Museum of Art. Normally, I curate thematic, large exhibitions about ecosystems, watersheds, issues that are having to do with environmental degradation or appreciation of what we have and how to restore it. So at first I started thinking, now what's the difference when I'm thinking about people? And what are the similarities? What is unique to people? And so suddenly I started thinking in terms of character, of integrity, of trust, of courage, the values that we hold dear as a nation. And then I also started thinking about the people that Ansel knows that I pulled from our collection, which is rather extensive, to show in the gallery. And I was thinking how these people start to become their own social ecosystem, how they interact, how they feed one another, and they become more than each one of them in terms of contributions to the culture because of their interactions. They reinforce one another, they inspire one another, and they set the tone, in a sense, for the rest of the century, not only for Northern California, but many of their ideas have been picked up nationally and sometimes internationally. The people who I've included in the show, who Ansel interacted with in this socio-ecosystem that I'm looking at, the critical ones were his father, who was very loving and forgiving and understanding and helpful and supportive. Another that was really, really important is Albert Bender. Albert Bender was a wonderful insurance broker who was a patron for the arts from the San Francisco Bay Area. And he would buy things, he would collect, he would introduce people. So Ansel was introduced to quite a few people from Albert Bender. And he supported him, he encouraged him to make his very first book, his portfolio, and introduced him in a sense to the art world in a very professional way and as a social way. Ina Colbreth was a real character. She was a librarian in Oakland. She encouraged Jack London, Bret Hart, different people, the boys who would be coming to the library. She was a poet herself, and she became the first poet laureate of California, and that coincided with the Panama Pacific Exposition in 1915 that Ansel was so empowered by, for having attended for a whole year and cut school for a whole year. And so his father would be considered encouraging truancy now, whereas we look at it now as taking a misfit out of school who was just too much. He was a bright kid and he was bored with school, and he gave him another opportunity, and Ansel was exposed to the world. in the arts and the science and technology and inspired by it. I was the first girl that Michael brought home to his family. They were thrilled because he was 27 and they thought, is there any hope for this guy? And here's a live one. And so and they could recognize, I think, that our values were very much in accord. And so they loved me as much as Michael did. So Ansel had some influence on me, but I think that I came to it as a whole human being. And then I have enough humility, and that's an important thing to me, that I learn from everyone, and I'm trying to learn something fresh every day. And Ansel is, in a sense, of the same ilk, and so we were very compatible. I'm really hoping that these people who have accomplished so much, they've gone in fits and starts. They've stumbled all over the place. We bumble through life, we all do. But we become humble in that respect, and from there we have a really strong growing point because we're open to new experiences and to new feelings. Michael and I lived in Washington, D.C. First we lived in St. Louis. He went to medical school at Washington University. And I taught until we had children. I taught history and civics in high school. And then we moved to Washington, D.C. And from there we moved to Germany. And Michael was the chief of aerospace medicine. He was a fighter pilot and a physician. When we returned after 3 years to California, where he would go into his residency, it was decided that I would run the best studio in Yosemite, which started in 1902. And so I became the third generation, even though I was the daughter-in-law. As that, I was buyer and a planner and, doing all the different things. Plus we had photography education. We had free camera walks for people in the park. And we had an extensive program that went well beyond. It was a typical retail store. But I had no training in that, but I figured it out. And after 25 years later, we were a very successful business in Yosemite. Ansel and I would plan workshops pick out a workshop director, think of who we wanted to invite. I would monitor all the sessions for Ansel and tell him what was lagging, what we weren't covering, what needed to be done. And we could correct every day along the way. But I was kind of the go-between to check out all these things. So I learned a lot of photography along the way. And then I would usually be Ansel's driver to take him over for the different sessions and things. And if necessary, I could kind of prep him on what he needed to say. And so we just worked more as a team. We were family, and we did things like this, but we didn't think about it. You're in the process of making something work. After every single creative photography workshop, we would say, that was the best workshop ever. And then he would promptly go to bed for 3 days, just exhausted. And we would take good care of him, And so we all lived together and we did all these things together. Ansel was so good at being able to make an image that people could see and feel how he felt at that moment. It's a lot of darkroom alchemy and dodging and burning, and he knew the chemistry, he knew the papers, he knew the lighting, natural light, he knew the subject matter, he had a reverence for nature. So he can communicate that. It's almost musical, it's almost poetic. Michael and I have a really extensive collection of photography. A lot of it, most of it is centered on Ansel. I continue to collect all the time if I see something I want. On the portraits of wall, the big collage wall, the people can see the photograph that Edward Weston took of Ansel under the bridge trestle. I am always on the lookout, but we also have a lot that I can draw from. When I'm putting an exhibition together or curating, I have a concept that I think is unique for, in this case, the Monterey Museum of Art, in terms of what they are really trying to accomplish with creating experiences, with storytelling, and I'm giving context to these people, but it's creating a new community of the people who come to the exhibition. I want people to feel a sense of connectedness to even something they've experienced before and kind of forgot about, but cherish. And let that come up and support them and inspire them again to be more engaged, even in their own lives as well as community. I'm telling history in my way simply because I had to study history for 8 years. And it was typically one man's war to another man's war to another man's war. Now I love men, I'm not condemning men, but I'm condemning the idea that they left out culture. There was nothing about music, nothing about art, nothing about what was going on, and how people were living. So I don't believe that it's really equitable to criticize something without coming up with what you think might be a better solution. And so in a sense, this might be one of my better solutions as to how history can be taught. And you absorb it without even knowing you're learning something. I mean, so my curating is so different from somebody who learned how to do it in school. I just stumbled into it, came up with my own idea. I never liked how history was taught. So this is perhaps my way of saying this is a better way, there's a better way, and maybe this is one of those better ways. When I'm curating, I try to bring that forward. Everybody comes away thinking, wow, I didn't know that. Everyone who's looking at it can take something away that belongs to him or her in a personal way.